guess it was about 6 years ago, there was a conference that I wanted to go to. It was an unschooling summit. So it was the whole philosophy of unschooling, which is about child-led learning and this whole mindset. And it was for parents. It was, and so it was a chance to get away and connect with people from a group that I was part of. I learned about this conference, and I'm like, I want to go to that. It was up in New York, up in the Finger Lakes. And I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to pay for this. I don't know how I'm going to get there. At the time, both of our cars were older. Didn't know if it would make that kind of trek. We had talked about wanting to get a newer car, but hadn't done that yet. The expense of going was a bit much. So I reached out. I signed up for it, and I put out there that I wanted a roommate, knowing that if I could share a place with someone that we could keep the costs down. So I put the message out there. Someone responded to me that she also would be mind having a roommate. We didn't know each other. Then we needed the car. And we had a Civic before. I got in a car accident, so we only had that, 6 months? And I always liked white cars. And we've had cars with the sun, moon roof, and I've liked that. And we wanted a Civic. So we started looking at cars. I remember we went around and we looked at some different Civics. There was a blue one that didn't have a sunroof. We were trying to keep the costs down.
Well, that's when we found Louis. And then
I'm talking about when we found our current Civic.
Oh. Okay.
You've gone back in time really far.
Too far back in time.
So you found the ad for this because you were checking, because we found that going through individual people, you save a lot of money. There's always an increased price when you look at a dealer. And so you were looking in the whatever advertising method there was 7 years ago. And there was a small used car dealership up in Mooresville, which is a good hour from where we live. And they had listed this Civic.
2008 Civic, yep. It was.
And the price was really low.
Yeah, because I had really been looking at all the Civics, and it was probably $1,000 or $2,000 at least below what I found on the lowest one.
Right. So we make an appointment. We go up there. Well, he didn't. He was a dealer that mostly dealt in used sports cars. Yeah. And had never really sold Hondas before. Higher
priced, higher end kind of cars.
And so this woman had traded in her kind of sporty Civic for a sports car. And he had actually increased the price already because he had so many inquiries at that low price. He didn't realize he had lowballed the price.
Well, we didn't really discuss price at first, but when we sat down with them, I had the printout, luckily, from the original. And he raised it about.
He kind of split the difference on it.
About $1,000, I think he raised it. So I mentioned it to him. Anyway, so we won't go on.
So this car was in impeccable condition. I mean, 2000. It was about 8 years old at the time, but it was within our price range. They had put in what are those custom mats? WeatherTech mats.
Which told me right there that it
had been well cared for. It was in excellent shape. It kind of had a sporty model. It had the sun moon roof. It was a white Honda Civic, and miles where we wanted them. I don't know if it was under 60 at the time. And there it was, and he had underpriced it. And
he was a good guy too, because he held it without putting money down on it. He was, he saw us and knew we were a family that was, really needed it, and he was a good guy. So
we found this car, I don't know, maybe 2 months before my trip. And I made plans because I took the younger two kids at the time, who were probably, 6 or 7 and 13.
Yeah, probably.
Went up to my brother's in Pennsylvania, so that's like a 9-10 hour drive. The kids stayed with him while I went up to New York, went to this conference, roomed with this woman. We got along well, enjoyed the conference. Probably less than a year later, my youngest was looking for other kids to play Minecraft with, and it was this woman that responded to me, and her daughter and ours connected, and they became fast friends online. And I think about that whole process of how I wanted to go to that conference, and I didn't know how I was going to get there. I didn't know what vehicle I was going to have to get there, how I was going to pay for it. And it somehow all fell together in place. So many times things don't always fall together.
So this is Don and Gina with Focused Healthy Family. And today we're really talking about manifesting, getting the mindset in place to want to create what we want in our life.
The law of attraction.
And, it was interesting, just to mention in there, you said about you put the message out there. Well, I want to add to that, because you not only put it out in physical format, you put it out in your mind. You put it out to the universe, I guess is how. So we want, and that's what we're going to talk about today. This is podcast number 14, and again we're talking about manifesting. But before we do, we want to get a word from our sponsor.
Today's podcast is sponsored by Q Sciences. Don and I discovered that the supplements we were taking and giving to our children were not being absorbed properly. I was very excited when I found Q Sciences. I was impressed with the quality of the products and that they provide maximum absorption. They have a variety of products, including a Q Max product, which is a combination of 3 products, including vitamins, minerals, and a probiotic. They also have hemp oil, a vitamin B12 spray, a sleep spray, and kids products. I've really seen a difference in how these products are improving how I feel, improving my mental health, and I'm happy with the quality of these products and how they're helping our whole family. If you'd like to learn more,
simply go to qsciences.focusedhealthyfamily.com. That's the letter Q, sciences.focusedhealthyfamily.com. Or you can find a link on the front page of the focusedhealthyfamily.com website.
And stop throwing your money away on supplements that don't work and use a quality product like Q Sciences.
And we're back.
So today we're talking about manifesting, the law of attraction.
Yeah, it's something that I think a lot of people don't either comprehend or really think about. It's kind of pushed out of us when we're pretty small, we're young, that we really are creative beings. Mm-hmm. And that how we focus our mind and what we think towards is what we can create.
Take a simple example. We talk about this all the time when we work with parents in our workshops and talking about anxiety. You're at work. You've had a difficult day. You get in the car to come home. Traffic is a nightmare. Someone cuts you off. You're angry. You just had enough. You walk in the door. You're frustrated. You stub your toe. You yell and scream. Something's going on with the kids. How long does it take for that angst, that anger to spread through the house?
Oh, it very short period of time. I mean, and you're talking about a scenario I did a lot. I feel like I've gotten a lot better in my. I don't know if road rage is really the right word, because I was never going to shoot somebody, but what I would do is it would go internal. I would fold, my fists would be clenched almost. They'd be like wrapped around the steering wheel because I'd be so angry, and yeah, because it's really about a flow of energy,
Versus, you come home, you're like, you know what? Today's going to be a good day. Maybe things went really well. That's right, the easy times this happens. And you walk in the door and you're like, it's good to be home, And the response you get from your family can be so different depending on what your energy is and what you bring to it.
Well, and we talk about the law of attraction. And it's, for those of you that, in the Bible, it talks about what you sow, so shall you reap. Well, in a real common sense, what I do and the practice I do is about energy. I'm working on helping people change their energy. It's what energy you put out is the energy you get back. And, you and I both, in our lives, have created a lot of things. We've created money. to come into our lives when we needed it. I remember we had that water heater, and it went out, and we're like, oh, it was cost us like about $1,000 to have that in, something like that. And we were like, oh my gosh, we're
gonna put it on the credit
card again. And a day or so later, we get a check
from a family member
just for $1,000. And it's like it just it kind of blew me away. But I've seen that in a lot of things, and I see it with my clients too. Creating relationships, getting the right person into their lives.
We do it all the time with our negative thoughts, our negative, messages. I was in a car accident 10 years ago, and afterwards I was just very fearful behind the wheel. I just was triggered easily, and I was just stressed by every little thing. I was noticing people on their phone. I just was noticing all the negative things. I was like, oh my gosh, we're all just, a sliver away from a car accident all the time. And I'm going to work, and these two cars decide to race each other on this narrow 2-lane road. And I'm like, wow, I was just really bringing all this fear and danger to me, because that's where my mind was kind of stuck. A lot of times we struggle. If we struggle financially, we worry about the money. Well, that just manifests more struggle, more worry. And yet there's times in our life when we've been able to flip it around. And like you said, we've had times when money showed up, and we've been able to find the right car at the right price, be able to have the money to pay for some different things. Different people come into our lives.
Well, it brings up and I'll tell another story, but when you wanted to write that book, it was a children's book that I had this idea for, kind of sprung from my oldest child and some of the things he liked. And it was this adventure with crayons. I won't go into detail about it, because it's still sitting there, and someday this will become a published book. Well, you were wanting to know more about Crayola crayons, the brand,
the history of it,
the history and all that. I had seen the granddaughter of, I think it's Benny Smith. I'm trying to think. Benny, one of the two founders, on Oprah, and it got me to thinking about, wow, it would be neat to be able to talk with her, to have you talk with her, have you meet her, or somehow. So I went through this process, and I don't think this is necessary to create things totally, but every morning I'd go through a meditation of just imagining somehow a contact coming between you and her. And
keep in mind, this is back in... This was before we had Facebook.
Yeah, because Harrison was pretty young then.
So this is
probably in the 2000,
early 2000s. So we didn't yet have Facebook. We didn't have all the social media. The internet was there, but
So every morning I would go through this process of meditation with just creating and envisioning this happening. I also took action, though. I did, because one of the things I believe in this process of creating from my mind is that you can't just sit in a closet and do a and make it happen. You have to follow through with things that come to you to take action. So I also had read an article that she had talked. Her name was Chapman. She had talked at Purdue University, gave a speech or something there. So I contacted somebody at Purdue, and I also contacted somebody at Oprah, and I'm not sure which one it came from, but so didn't really think about it. Time passed, probably a couple months passed. One Sunday, we went to church. We were going to Unity at the time, and we had the old-fashioned recording machine for the phone message recorder. We came back from that answering machine. Thank you. And come in the door and somebody had left a message, hit the button, and what did we hear? Hi, this is, and I can't remember her first name, so-and-so Chapman. I understand you're trying to get a hold of me. Please have, I get choked up, please have Gina call me at this number. And you end up talking to her. I did.
And I didn't realize, I guess, that you had been doing this meditation and putting this out there. You hadn't really told me that until after she called. I was a bit overwhelmed. Yeah, I got to talk to this.
I remember we danced around like, wow, this is unbelievable, Yeah,
because I guess you had sent messages out and they called. And so, I remember having quite an interesting conversation with her.
Didn't go anywhere at the time. It was just the fact of it, though, that was so cool. And it just really helped to prove to me that there is that capability to, and we now really want to work with parents to understand that it really helps in how we parent.
Yeah.
Because then we create a better relationship with our kids. We create the things that we want to do with our family.
I've got a story.
Okay.
This is a little more real and not quite so uplifting, yet so we have kids with obsessive compulsive disorder, think severe anxiety disorder. We've talked about that in other podcasts. It's intense. It's the anxiety, the thoughts are so strong that they convince themselves or that they have to engage in compulsions or something terrible is going to happen. And it's so intense. I'm losing my train of thought.
It'll come back.
So we've had these struggles, right? And it's repetitive behaviors. And there are times when we get so bogged down with it. Their anxiety flares up and we go through these, oh no, not again. This is happening again, right? And what do we do in our mind? We catastrophize, right? Yeah. I'm good at seeing when Dawn does these things, in the attracting what we don't want. I know that I do it too. It's just always easier to see it in someone else, to observe it. Oh no, she's going to do that, and that means this is going to happen, and that means this is going to happen, right? And what happens? Things continue to flare up like that. And you call it, in the climbing the wall of anxiety, she comes at you. You did this to me. Mm-hmm. No, I didn't. Yes, you did. Yeah. Versus, wow, you're really angry. I did this and you didn't like it.
Yeah.
It can really reduce that anxiety. Versus, but I did it.
Yeah.
Yes, you did.
I climbed that wall so many times.
And it's so easy to get into it, right? But it's kind of manifesting more of that anger, thinking about the energy that we're putting out there. When we can stay calm, even when one of our kids are flaring up with anxiety and anger, then it can help shift things. This happened today. She struggles for compulsions with going into the bathroom, and she wanted to go back in even though she had just gotten out, and we had to leave in a little bit, and you kind of stopped her from going in, and then she's like, you hit me, you pushed me, and the flaring was going on and all this anger and this rage, and I was able to step in and listen, and she came to calm down, but what came out was things that she was actually angry about. And I'm like, wow, isn't this interesting that she's angry about social media and people, being mean and bullying and.
Well, it was tripping and triggering her OCD.
So it's like, but I mean, all that anger, when we got to the underlying, she had a lot of anger in her, and it was about these other issues. It wasn't about the battle with you, but there was this anger and angst within her.
Yeah.
And I just found it very interesting that came out of this, that she had these feelings inside that get kind of bottled up. And I guess when you have OCD, that can turn into your compulsions. Oh, I got to wash my hands again. I got to
use
whatever your compulsion is, and it can be very different. With our kids, it's about hand washing and
some different bathroom issues.
But it doesn't always have to look like that. It could be repetitively organizing things, or I read about a man who just, the thought was that he ran over someone, and he would get in the car and he'd be like, oh my gosh, I think I ran over someone. He had to get out and check, like constantly getting out of the car and checking to make sure. If you're doing that, you're never going to get anywhere. It's kind of like we leave the house. I like this analogy of, what's the difference between obsessive compulsive disorder and just having kind of obsessive thoughts or compulsions. You leave the house, you're like, did I leave the oven on? You might go back and check once. Or you might go, you know what, I think I did. And you go on and you forget about it. Someone with obsessive compulsive disorder goes, oh my gosh, I think I left the oven on. They turn around, they go home, they check. They head out again. Wait a minute, did I really turn it off? And they go home and they check again. And it leads to a place of where it takes so much time, it's disrupting their life and not getting things done.
I think really the one of the points here is to understand the power of the mind. Mm-hmm. And that power works both ways. Mm-hmm. It works towards the positive when you focus towards what you want. It also works when you're thinking negative. It has the power to keep the negative coming.
It does.
And so I think that's why we tell these stories about how we've manifested, is to show the power of the mind. And what you just showed was the power on the negative side. That it just whatever you focus towards is what's going to create.
And I do this thing in the morning where I go outside, I stand on the front porch, I listen to this meditative song. It's a song from a rock band from the 80s, but it has the tones, is that what you call it?
Yeah.
In the background. And when I was at the beach by myself a year ago, I stood out on the pier, I listened to the song, I looked out at the ocean, and I envisioned myself, I can go home and do this and picture myself at the beach. It's my happy place. It brings me my calm. It energizes me, recharges me. So I started standing on, we have kind of a front porch. Our house sits up kind of high. I can look out at the trees. When I get out there early, I could watch the sunrise. The sunrise is getting earlier and earlier. I have to get up really early to get out there. It's also the sun is shifted more now, and the trees now, it's harder to see that they're blooming. So I stand out there, and sometimes I'll take a walk then, or I'll just stand out there. It's the idea of grounding. I mean, I'm standing up on the porch, but I'm outside. I'm listening to the birds. I'm watching the birds. There's some mindfulness that goes on. So I was doing it pretty regularly. And then I work as needed, and I covered for someone all week. I worked Monday through Friday, which I don't typically do. And I didn't take the time to go outside before I went to work. And by the end of the week, I strained my back at work. I was feeling in a slump. I was really struggling again. And so yesterday or the day before, I'm like, I need to go outside. I woke up. I didn't really want to get up and do things. Like, you need to go stand outside. And I did. And then I'm like, you know what? You need to take a walk. And I took a walk. And it made a huge difference.
You changed your energy.
In how my day went. And so this morning, I woke up. Our daughter's doing a special treatment program, and it's 1 o'clock, Monday through Friday. Every day we have to go somewhere. And I'm the kind of person that needs a down day. I need a day where I have nowhere to go. Working on the weekends, I don't always get that because somebody's got an appointment of some sort during the week. And so I just woke up and I'm like, and I'm like, okay, just go outside, and I go out because you looked at me and said, are you taking a walk? I said, I do things one step at a time. I'm just putting shoes on and I'm going to stand outside because sometimes that's all I would do. And then I'm like, okay. And you had already fed all the cats. And I'm like, okay, you know what? I can take a walk. And I took a walk. And it doesn't even have to be a super fast walk because I did an Instagram and some Facebook Lives on my walk. But it's just so powerful. And I see it when I don't do the things. It's like I also keep a morning gratitude journal. And I would write in it before I went to work. And I would write, I'm calm, I'm confident, I'm connected, I'm courageous. I get my work done in a timely, efficient manner. And I would write these things, wanting as a manifesting of what I want for my day. And then when I skip doing that, I look back and go, oh, wow, I've been struggling, but look, I've forgotten to take, 2 minutes, even if I just write 2 sentences or just, I am grateful. Sometimes that's all I write down, just starting off with gratitude. So we're talking a lot about manifesting, the law of attraction, the ways that we do this, the way we sabotage ourselves, and looking at how we can do it differently. Love to have more conversation about this. There's definitely more material in there. So that's our podcast for today. We hope you've enjoyed it. We'd love to hear from you. Make sure to leave us a comment. And if you like what you heard today, you can learn more about our parent coaching program or join us at our next upcoming workshop. We have one coming up in May, and be on the lookout for more at www.focusedhealthyfamily.com. Follow us on Facebook. You can see me on Instagram, Gina at Focused Healthy Family.
And how you speak to your children shapes their future. Thank you.